Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Mind Muscle Connection podcast. Today is a Q&A episode, and I have 3 questions I want to dive into. But first, before I do that, just want to go over a few ways you can help support the podcast. So first, if you found this podcast to be helpful in any way, if you could leave a rating and review, and that will help more people find this podcast. Again, I want to continue to grow this, and the best way to do that is for people to see that other people listen and enjoy it. Appreciate everybody who listens, but this will only help the podcast. Next, I have my free masterclass on body recomp, what it is, how to do it. The link to that is in the show notes. I also have my free masterclass on nutrition periodization. So I go over each phase, how to set it up, common adjustments, common mistakes, everything that you need to know about each nutrition phase is in there. And again, the link to that is in the show notes. Next, I have my Instagram. So if you haven't given me a follow yet, make sure you follow me there, Jeff, HOEHN_. That's where I'm most active on social media. That's where if you have any questions, you can reach out to me. You can get them answered on here. If I say something on the podcast that doesn't make sense, again, that would be a great place to follow up and check in if you have any follow-up questions to this. With that out of the way, let's dive into today's questions. My first question of the day is, can't work out for a few weeks for health reasons, how to prevent muscle loss? I really like this question because I think we would get, I just think this is a common thing where people think that there's something special that they can do to prevent muscle loss. So I have some good news and I have some bad news here. So let's start with the good news is if you do lose any muscle, and let's say it's 2 weeks, it's going to be very minimal, if anything, right? Especially if you're somebody who's been training for a while, right? You've really established that muscle in your body. So that's the good news. Part one is even if you lose a little bit, going to be very minimal. So it's going to be something that's not like all of a sudden you're going to lose just this massive amounts of muscle in a 2 week span. Now, again, the longer we go out, the more this is going to start to happen and the more you'll lose, obviously, right? So again, the longer we're not able to train, that's something that can happen. The other good news is that whatever little amount you lose in this process, it would come back very quick once you start lifting. That's the other good thing is it's going to come back very quick. So even if you lost, let's say you were out for 3 weeks, you lost a little bit of muscle. Once you start lifting, that's going to come back super quick. Another thing I want to mention here too is I think we have this perceived loss of muscle if we don't train for a week or two or something like that. And I think really that just comes down to you're just maybe a little less like inflamed. So you just feel a little bit smaller there, which potentially be a good thing. But then you also just don't have that pump as well too. And that could be something that you just lose out and you just feel like you're a little bit smaller, but it's like you still have the same amount of muscle. And then again, once you come back and train, you'll get that pump back and you'll feel bigger there. I guess the other good news too is when we look at this kind of research on maintenance, it takes a lot less to maintain your muscle than it does to build it. If it takes, say, X amount of volume to build, you could do anywhere in the research from 1/3 to 1/9 of that volume. Now, obviously, the older you get, the less you've trained overall. Sorry, let me rephrase that. The older you are, you probably need to do a little bit more to maintain, unfortunately, right? The younger you are, you probably are more likely to maintain. And that just probably comes down to the fact that we're just in a more anabolic state overall as we're younger than when we are older. Obviously, the more muscle you have, it's probably going to be tougher to maintain your maximum amount of muscle. Like you might have to do a little bit more to maintain all that, but it's a lot easier to maintain than it is to build new muscle. Like you can really, in the research, there was a recent study and they found that basically muscle mass is preserved for 6 weeks with one session performed every 14 days. And so we can do as little as that, right? A weekly training session can preserve all muscle mass for at least 12 weeks after. So we're talking, you can just do one and you can maintain. So you really have to not like, it takes a lot less to maintain than you think. And so again, in this situation, if you're somebody if you obviously can't train, you can't weight train, okay, that's a different story. But if you are able to at least train once a week, that really goes a long way. And I bring this up because I see too many people that, if they can't go all in on it, they don't want to do it. And I think that's a big mistake because we really can get away with a lot less to maintain than to build. And this can be super helpful for extended periods of time or in the long run, if you can maintain, that's time that now you can get back into training and you can just continue to progress versus if you don't train for a little bit, then you have to have 2, 4, 6, 8 weeks of building what you lost in this period of time. So super important. And again, we know that it takes a lot less to do that. So again, if you have a busy time in your life and you're not able to dedicate as much to training, one session can go a long way. So to get back to so hopefully now I've said it so far to where it's like, hey, there's a lot of good news here with this. Now, let's talk maybe about things that aren't necessarily the greatest of news here. So if you really can't work out for a few weeks for health reasons, again, an injury, something like that, you're just not able to train. The bad news is if you can't lift, there's not really anything you can do to maintain your muscle mass. Again, we need to send that signal to our body to build muscle and to maintain it. And if we're not sending that, we can't, there's nothing that we can do. Now, and what I mean by that is you can't just eat more protein to maintain your muscle. Again, if you're not sending that signal to build muscle, it's going to be challenging. Now, again, if you have health reasons why you can't do it, again, go back to what I said initially here on the good news is, again, if it's a 2-week thing, you're probably not going to lose very much muscle. If it's longer than that, you're probably going to start to lose some muscle, but the good news is that it is going to come back quickly. So this is where, again, using this maintenance research can be super helpful because we want to try to get in what we can. So again, if this is an injury and you can only train maybe parts of your body, you definitely want to do that. But if there's something where you can't train at all, just understand that hopefully it's not going to be an extended period of time that you're out. I would say the only thing you could really do is try to stay active, and just getting some form of resistance in to try and preserve as much as you can. What is the work? Is it anything where you can't lift anything? Is it figuring out what exactly this is? Because depending on what it is, I would be like any sort of resistance is going to be better than not doing anything, right? So again, we could think of like, all right, if it's like you can't dedicate 4 days a week to the gym, the good news is if you do one, that's perfect. That's going to preserve your muscle, right? In most cases. If you can't do that, can you do some sort of body weight or band or something like that, right? Some form of resistance. If you can't do that, then can you do something like a bike, or can you do something like maybe I can't think, like the echo bike where you have to use your hands, right? The assault bike, because that's going to provide some resistance, right? Again, just moving, because again, I think the quickest way to lose muscle is to just not do anything, because you're sending that signal to your body that it doesn't need it. And so it will lose. So that's the bad news, right? Is you do need to weight train to really preserve your muscle. If you can't, again, I gave you those drop down steps, and just understand that, hey, the longer you aren't able to train, you will start to lose some muscle. But if it's only a short period of time, it just will be minimal. Again, we want to try to do what we can to preserve as much as we can, again, by following that. And saying that, understanding now all of this, what are some things that will help ensure that you don't just lose a ton of muscle during this process if you can't train? Again, making sure you get plenty of protein, still hit your protein goals. If you're not weight training, you're still probably going to lose some muscle, but you're at least going to offset some of that if you eat enough protein. Make sure you're not in a large deficit during this period of time. Again, if we're in a deficit, that's going to send that signal to lose muscle. So again, we want to make sure we're probably eating it at around maintenance during this period of time. We want to make sure we get good sleep. If we're not sleeping well, that's going to be another thing that's going to increase the rate at which your body will lose muscle. We obviously want to manage stress in the protein side of things. So those are the main things you can do to preserve muscle. It's really going to come down to, you have to weight train. If you can't, everything I said will be helpful here. So I hope that gives you and listener who asked us and everyone else a better idea of what this looks like. I think for me, this has been the biggest insight in whatnot over the last couple of years, is just how little you can do to maintain, which is awesome. And I could really have been able to utilize that for times when maybe I travel, or again, we're having a baby soon. So again, that's going to be like super helpful during that period of time. And if you just have a ton of stuff going on, you can just really use this to get out of that, oh crap, if I don't train 4 days a week, I can't do anything. Again, it really, I can't stress enough how, like, when clients get to the point to where they're like, they have a lot going on, I just can't train. I do everything in my power to be like, hey, I understand you can't do everything right now, but can we at least just get one training session in? I need you to at least try and get this in. And there's situations where they don't, and I just don't think maybe they realize how important it is to at least maintain what you have during that period of time. So I can't stress enough, if you are able to do at least a little bit, you definitely want to try and do that versus taking extended periods of time, not doing anything at all because you have a lot going on. And again, you could do that in 20 to 30 minutes. And if you don't have 20 to 30 minutes, there's there's a deeper issue and something that we really got to look into at that point. So hopefully that's helpful there with that one. Second question, how to know you're ready to exit maintenance and transition to a build or cut? So I think this is going to look a little bit different if we're transitioning from a cut to a build. And I guess another kind of thing here is I try to reframe this for a lot of clients of like thinking of maintenance and building is different. I think they're very similar because the goals like when you're outside of a fat loss phase really is to at least maintain / build more lean tissue. Again, how in depth you want to get with that ultimately is up to you. So I almost take these as the same. But they can differ slightly, right? I mean, we can be a maintenance for multiple reasons. It doesn't necessarily just have to be from like taking a break from fat loss. There's a lot of different reasons why we would do maintenance. But as I've said in many episodes in the past, just because you're at maintenance calories doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to be able to build muscle or anything like that. And in a lot of cases, people are in a great spot to build muscle at maintenance. So I think it's also, what are we trying to do in this maintenance phase? What is the goal of it? Is it a maintenance health phase to get you through a busy period of time? But even then, we're still going to weight train, and so you technically could still call it a building phase. So I think when we talk semantics here, I think a building phase and a maintenance phase are like, the goals should really be the same, other than like maybe in a building phase, we're really trying to maximize muscle growth. And for some people, they're not going to be able to do that when they're at maintenance calories. But again, a lot of people are still going to be able to do that. So I think it is very similar. So when we say that, it's important to understand what is the role of the maintenance phase that you are currently doing. With that frame in mind, transitioning from maintenance to a build, I think there's not really anything that you necessarily need to focus on. I don't think you need to make sure anything's in us. I don't think you have to look out for certain things. Whereas like transitioning from maintenance to a cut, there are some things that I would want to look out for. If we want to transition to building phase, I feel like you can really do this whenever. You don't really have to be at maintenance for any amount of time or anything like that. I guess the only other thing, again, if we're gonna differentiate maintenance to a surplus, transitioning from maintenance calories to a small calorie surplus, this would probably be a little bit different. Maybe I would say you probably want to make sure digestion's in a good spot. We probably want to make sure your sleep's in a good spot. We want to make sure that you're able to train regularly and push your training. We want to make sure you have good nutrition habits in place, good balance of whole foods versus some flexibility. We want to make sure your macros are in check. We want to make sure you're not going through a super stressful period of time. So those would be things that I would want to make sure are in check, going from maintenance calories to calorie surplus. But understanding that a lot of times we can be at our maintenance calories and still be in a building phase. I think a lot of times people get that confused. So those would be things I would look out for getting into a surplus. Because again, if those things aren't there, say your digestion's poor and you try to get into a calorie surplus, one, you might just be making that process even worse by overloading the amount of food your body's getting. You may not be absorbing everything as well. So again, you're just putting your gut through a lot of extra stress for really low ROI there. If sleep's not good and we get you into a calorie surplus, again, you're probably going to gain a little bit more body fat than you want. If our food quality is not there, again, it's going to be you're probably going to overshoot that calorie surplus. And if training's not there, then same thing, you're probably going to build a little bit more body fat than muscle if we don't have our training in check. So those would be the things that I would want to look at there. Now, if we're transitioning from maintenance calories to cut, we do want to make sure that we're in a good spot. This would be something that I would be a little bit more diligent on in terms of transitioning you from a maintenance phase to a fat loss phase. And especially if you're somebody who came off of a previous fat loss phase recently. So if you spent, say, more than, or say you just lost 10% or more of your body weight, again, we'd want to make sure that we took at least half of the time that we were in that deficit off from fat loss dieting. I would say at least a third to a half of it, right? So if you did 8 weeks, or let's say you did 16 weeks, I would say at the very minimum, you'd want to be in a maintenance phase for probably 4 to 6 weeks in between going back into a fat loss phase. That's just an easy kind of general rule of thumb thing. However, I would look more at your biofeedback and how you're feeling. So some things that we would look at to make sure that you're in a good spot to go back to a deficit after a maintenance would be, obviously hunger levels. If you're still feeling like ravenously hungry, probably not a good time to go back into a fat loss phase. I think you want to spend a little bit more time at your maintenance calories. You have low energy. You're just not feeling great from day to day. Again, this is probably something around sleep, or again, maybe it is you're still just aren't fully recovered from the previous fat loss phase. If you have an irregular menstrual cycle, so if that's still not in check, I probably would hold off on going back into a fat loss phase, making sure that you're pretty regular there. If your libido is still not great, that would be something. If you're still having a lot of food focus, these are all things that I would steer me away from pushing you back into a deficit and continuing a little bit more time at maintenance or in a building phase there. But also, I think we need to also look at your current level of leanness and how much weight you previously lost in that last fat loss phase. If you were in a deficit for, say, 16 weeks and you lost 2 pounds and you're 25% body fat or higher, you probably can go back to a cut. Obviously, we'd still want to make sure a lot of these kind of habits and stuff are in place. That's going to be different than somebody who was in a 16-week cut, lost 15% of their body weight, and is now very lean. Like, for them, that process is going to look a lot different. So I think we also need to take into consideration how lean you got, how much weight you lost, and how long you did that for. And that will obviously alter these as well too. But I think the big takeaway, there is no exact number here. I would base this more off of biofeedback and the context of the situation versus looking for exact numbers. I think too many times, and I understand this, right? But I think too many times people want an exact number here, and it's really hard to give, and you really need to look into things a little bit more. Cool. So hopefully that was helpful. All right. So next question is, how small of a deficit for body recomp, and how long can you sit in that deficit? Again, I don't think there's necessarily an exact number here. I don't think we need to be like, you need to be in a 250 calorie deficit, but especially in a recomp, because again, the goal of a body recomp is, we obviously want to build, maintain muscle. So we need to make sure that our biofeedback's in a good spot and we're able to push training. So the larger the deficit is, the more that's going to be impacted. That's an easy kind of way to think of it. The quicker you lose weight, the quicker that weight comes off, the less that's going to be better from a fat loss perspective, but it's not going to be great from a building slash maintaining muscle standpoint. That's my first thing here. So I would say probably aiming for around 0.25 to 0.5% of body weight per week. So if we're taking somebody who's under 50 pounds, we're looking at 0.4 to 0.75 pounds per week of weight loss. I think that's a good spot for people to see a body recomp and still have some muscle building, still be able to build some muscle in a deficit. Now, again, as I've talked about multiple times, the larger the deficit is, the more muscle you have and the leaner you are, the less likely this is going to happen. Okay. So this would be somebody who has moderate to higher levels of body fat, has not a lot of muscle, but maybe a little bit or none. And yeah, those would be the kind of two situations where you could do this. That's the range that we're looking at. Now, as far as what the exact calories would be, it's really dependent on the person. This is where we would have to get your maintenance calories. And then from there, we would have to we would decrease your calories and see if it lines up here with this, while also looking at your biofeedback. Okay. So making sure that training's going well, making sure that you're not overly hungry, making sure that you're going to be a little hungry and you're going to have some potential diet fatigue, but making sure that's not really bad to where it's impacting you. Because if that's the case, that deficit's probably just a little too big. And so the second half of that question is, how long can you sit in that deficit? And it really just comes down to how you feel overall in your performance in the gym. And so this is going to be different for everyone because, again, it's going to be dependent on your current body composition. So the leaner you are, the more muscle you have, the shorter this time frame is going to be to where you can sit here. The more body fat you have and the less muscle you have, the longer you'll be able to sit here, but also taking into consideration how you feel. So again, really paying attention to that diet fatigue that we talked about. And the main reason for this is because maintaining and building muscle is very important in a body recomp. So we want to make sure training is going, well, and you're just generally feeling good from day to day. Whereas in a fat loss phase, you're probably going to have a little bit of a larger deficit, maybe a little bit more hunger. You might just feel a little bit more depleted than you would in a body recomp. And again, there's pros and cons to each approach, and you just need to see which one works best for you. But again, I think generally speaking, the smaller the deficit is, the better it's going to be from a body recomp perspective. Again, a fat loss and building slash maintaining muscle from a building muscle, losing body fat perspective. So hopefully that was helpful. And that is it for this episode. As always, if you found this helpful, please leave a rating and review. And if you have, any specific questions on this, or it's, hey, how do I know I should transition out from a maintenance to a building phase? Or how do I structure a period of time where I'm not going to be able to train as much? What does all that look like? Then my free 30-minute strategy calls for you, and we can go over what your current issues are, how we can set up a game plan to work out those issues. And so if that's something you're interested in, the link to that is in the show notes. But that's it for this episode, and I will chat with you next time.